Jose, we just want a cash offer. We do not want to list the property. We don't want anybody to walk through our home.
Yeah, happy to give you a cash offer. I have no problem whatsoever with that. You mind me asking, like, what you would like as a cash offer?
Yeah, I was thinking, I wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
So you're kind of thinking, like, hey, look, I want to hear what your offer is versus me tell you what I really want for the property.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm happy to tell you what my cash offer is. You mind me asking what the condition of the property is?
Yeah, it's in pretty good condition. No major issues. There's no roof issues or anything like that.
So no major issues. Got it. And is it remodeled? Is it in original condition? What's the status of it?
No, it's kind of original, but we've kept it up real nice,
Okay, so original, kept it up real nice. Got it. Okay. And then I know that obviously you said that you'd like for me to make you a cash offer. Here's what I think would be a lot easier, Aaron. It's a lot easier if you just tell me what you want for the property. Then I can go back and do my research and see if that's an actual number that you would consider versus me just throwing out a random number. Can you at least tell me a certain range that you're looking for to try to see if if I could even make it work for you?
Yeah, I was thinking 600, somewhere around there.
Got it. Okay, so you're thinking 600,000. So at this point now that you actually have a number, you'll actually be able to, and this is not scripted anymore, you'll be able to kind of determine, is that a retail number or is that an actual cash offer number? So if the number that they throw out to you is a retail number, then I'm going to approach this as a real estate agent perspective, meaning I'm going to go to them and say, I'm going to begin to lead that conversation in that direction. Now, if they say 600 and that's actually a cash offer number, then I'm going to lead to take it from a cash offer perspective. In other words, basically.
And let's say it was retail, what would that conversation, what's the bridge? Because I know bridges are very important. How do you get from one place to the next? So what's the bridge from once you hear they say 600 and oh, there's a model match that sold retail for $595 or $580. Yeah. It's okay, they want retail. So what's the bridge to get them from the cash to now we're going to set an appointment for selling it retail?
I would ask another question. I would say something along the lines, okay, got it. And just to confirm, you're not looking to get the property on the open market. You're looking for more of a private type of offer. At least that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. That's really the preference.
Got it. Now, what if you knew that the only way to get that 600,000, what if it was possible, but you knew that the only way to get that would be to get it on the open market, but there was a way where we can make it super easy for you, limited showings, as is still? Is that something that you'd be open to?
Well, I guess so.
Got it. Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
So here's what I recommend. Yeah. You close basically at that point, basically.
Yeah. So based on what you've been kind of to share with me, I'm hearing a couple things. The first is you definitely want to sell. It's not a question of if, it's just how you're going to go about doing so, whether it's, a cash offer or exploring on the open market and retail. The second thing I'm hearing from you is that the more information you can gather right now in terms of realistically what an investor would offer for a home like yours in this condition and what you could get on the open market and how quickly you can get it, the better equipped you'll be. So you can decide which approach serves you best. So what I'd like to do is this, and I wouldn't mind. And then you go into, how we can connect. You can pop by, take a look, see what it has to offer and go from there.
I also think so today's topic is how to get cash offers or how to make cash offers as a real estate agent. So I think as an industry, it's something that we're not used to. And I think that most agents, what they do when they hear that somebody wants a cash offer is they try to talk them out of the cash offer versus listening to what the consumer really wants. So when I hear a cash offer, I'm open to it. I've bought some properties that are 75, 70% of the value, and I actually make more money if they allow me to buy it for cash if the deal is right. But instead of my brain automatically going into a cash offer is bad, I think about what do they really want when they say cash offer. And what I hear when I say cash offer is sometimes people say that they want a cash offer, but what they really want is simplicity. What they really want is as is sale. So if you can make it simple for them, if you can make it an as is sale, they really don't care if it's a traditional listing or if it's a cash offer. In some cases they do, but in some cases they don't. What I realize a lot of times when people ask us for cash offers is that they think that they want a cash offer, but they really want a retail offer, meaning that the number that they're thinking in their head is so close to retail that what's going to end up happening is they're going to end up listing the property with a real estate agent versus selling it at 75 to 70% of whatever the home is worth. In some cases, it'll work out, but as an agent, you want to remain open-minded to both possibilities and then help them in whichever route they want to go in, basically.
I agree. Yeah. And it's interesting because I just read about this concept today, actually. It's called selective attention, that your eyes and will only see and your ears will only hear what you're looking for. So in other words, I'm aware that there was a point in your real estate career where if somebody said, I want a cash offer, that you wouldn't be open to it. You'd be like, well, we can get you more on the open market. And like, are you sure? Usually those people want to buy it, right? So what happened for you? I know, but this is for other people. What happened for you that caused your brain to start to be open to that possibility?
So what happened for me is, before I became open to the possibility, I would attend just real estate top listing agent events, like how to become a dominant listing agent. So that's all my brain was focused on. I actually started attending flipper events and wholesaler events. And what I realized at these events is these people weren't any more skilled than I was as a real estate agent. They were actually a lot less skilled than I was. They were just really good at attracting motivated sellers. And what I realized with them is that a lot of them were making $100,000 on a flip, $50,000 on a flip, $100,000 on a wholesale. And sometimes it would take me 5 commission checks to get that. So what I started to realize is that I was missing out on business because I wasn't open to that possibility. And when I became open to it, I just started dancing between the two. Like, so if somebody told me, hey, I want a cash offer from the property, fantastic. Happy to give you a cash offer for the home. Can you tell me a little bit about the property? Can you tell me about the condition? Blah, blah, blah. Great. And then I would say something along the lines like, okay, and if I was able to get you a cash offer for the home, like as is condition, no commissions, no closing costs, what number would you actually sell the property for? And in some cases, they would say, well, I'll sell it for $866. And if that's a cash offer route, then I'm going in that direction. But if the number that they're telling me is a retail number, then I'm going to take it in the retail and I'm going to try to shift them from like, hey, look, you can actually get an as-is sale. You can make it a very simple sale. You can still get the number that you want. But in order for us to do that, it's going to require that you put it on the open market. Would you be open to that? And then at that point, they're going to give you a couple of like objections, like, no, I really don't want that. I only want as is, blah, blah, blah. But most of those people that want retail numbers are going to end up putting it on the open market with a real estate agent, basically.
Yeah. And I would propose that it's really the future of agents, because I think people that only do, let's say like sub 2 with Pace Morby, or only do like wholesaling and they don't understand the retail side, they're not as kind of well-rounded as, let's say, me or you, who understands the retail side at scale, who do hundreds of those transactions on a yearly basis. And then if you add this to your repertoire, like if you add this to your knowledge set of being open to, other options, then truthfully, they shouldn't have as much business as they do. The reason that they have so much business is because the vast majority of agents' minds are closed to creative finance, are closed to cash offers. And what's super interesting to me as well, Jose, we were talking about this before, is like all of these major platforms that get in the way, get in front of consumers before we get in front of them, right? So if you think about like there's a race, and at the beginning of the race, a contract gets signed, and at the end of the race, there's a closing. But before the race begins, they're online on these platforms, right? And then when the race ends, they're back online on these platforms to find out information about real estate. So all of them recognize that their entry into the transaction is the internet. It's getting in front of consumers. But then what they're doing, if you pay attention, is they're offering different choices and options. They all have cash offer programs. Why do they do that? Because they know that statistically 5% of the time or less, will someone accept the cash offer? Because it's usually 25 to 30% below fair market value. But what they also know is those other 95 leads out of 100, they are now seller leads, and they can sell those to agents for 35, 40% rips, which is unbelievable. And the primary reason why that is because agents aren't willing to do it themselves, right? So you have various different third-party sources that, you know, allow people to raise their hand and say, hey, I want a cash offer. But because your mind's open, you can have conversations with them. If they fit the 5% criteria, you buy it. If they don't, you're like, okay, great. Well, it sounds like what you're really interested is retail. And the great news is I happen to be a licensed real estate agent and we do a lot of business in your geographic area. I can help you with that. So with that being the case, may I make a suggestion? You know, based on what you've been kind of to share with me, I'm hearing a couple of things. The first is you want to sell it. The second is you want top dollar. So what I'd like to do, you know, I wouldn't mind them in your area all the time. Pop by, take a look, see what it has to offer. While I'm there, I'll show you those two things. Number one, what top dollar is. Number two, what the net proceeds would be to you when it all shakes out. And number three, and this one's really important because sometimes people imagine that having an agent help will take a long time. I can show you how within 14 days we can have a contract and within another 30 days we can be done and complete. And then at least this way you'll have everything you need and you can make the decision that you feel is best. Does that sound fair to you? Like it's actually pretty simple, but the barrier is mental. The barrier is like a way of thinking.
Well, even then, like part of your options or your value proposition to sellers can be like, look, like when we meet, I'll share with you like what we can offer you cash if you wanted to sell cash. And then I'll share with you like if you wanted to go on the open market, this is what you could expect to receive, and net bottom line it would all shake out. This way you have both options available. And then at that point, now the consumer has a cash offer that they can pull the trigger on. 95% of the time, it's not going to work out with the cash offer. And then they have the retail offer at the same time. Now, here's what I don't do. What I don't do is I leave it up to them to see which one of those options would be better for them versus trying to steer them in one way or another, meaning versus trying to steer them into the cash offer. The other thing that I was going to say is if you look at everything around us, like if you look at Zillow, Open Door, you look at Redfin, they all have the cash offer button now. And the reason they're doing it is to generate leads. So as a real estate agent, what I'm doing on a lot of the marketing that we're doing, I took the moving truck. I don't know if you know this, Aaron. The moving truck used to say, buy or sell with me, use this truck for free. Now it says, we buy houses cash. Big, yellow, bold letters. Why? Because if somebody's considering selling for cash, we want to be speaking to them, or it also generates traditional sellers. On our email list, whenever we send the podcast videos out to the client, we have a button on there now that says cash offer. Like, so we're giving people options, and the appointment that I'm going on today is actually from somebody who clicked on the cash offer button, and after speaking to him, he really wants retail. He doesn't want cash offer, but he's open to retail as long as we can make it a very simple process for him and make it an as-is sale, which there's no doubt in my mind that we can do that. Zero doubt in my mind that we can do that.
Well, and it's interesting because I was just on a coaching call yesterday with an agent in your state, works the high end, and he was sharing with me that there's actually less inventory.
In the high end?
Yeah, well, there's less inventory on January 26th of 2024 than there was on January 2nd of 2024. So inventory is going to be a problem. He was asking me, like, what do you think moving forward? I'm like, well, I think 2024 will be pretty similar in terms of transaction volume. So that's not going away. So he's like, well, what's the remedy? And one of the remedies that I suggested to him is having a cash offer program. It's the same way that these platforms generate leads. They're generating seller leads that they can sell back to agents for 35%. But you can do this for yourself. Now, the barrier to this, and I want everybody to be clear, is you have to have a little bit of resources, right, to be able to pay for these leads. And in agents' minds, what they think is like, oh, it's okay for me to spend 35% on the lead, which could be $5,000. Right? Because it's coming out of commissions. But when you think about it, that's an absurd amount to spend on a lead, like an unbelievable amount where you could be spending $200 to $300 for that lead. And because you're taking on that risk, it's your cash offer program. Now you get the seller leads that come from that instead of these platforms, you know, like a Zillow or whoever getting those seller leads and then selling them back to you at 35% rips.
Yeah. So there's different lead providers. Like, for example, one of the ones that we've talked about is called Need to Sell Your House Fast, which Aaron will include an affiliate link down below. Basically, if you sign up through that link, it actually helps out this podcast. So it basically, is a lead source where it's called pay per lead, basically. So you pay for the lead and then you get a motivated seller lead, meaning you get somebody looking to sell for cash. But what I have found with a lot of these leads is that most of them end up turning retail, and then one or two will end up turning into the cash offer. So as a real estate agent, it's really a way for you to lead generate for seller leads. And even then, like, I have a couple of students that are in Canada, and they're like, well, we don't have any access to any data. We don't have access to any, like, sellers' information or phone numbers. I'm like, well, if I was in Canada, I would start a website for making cash offers, and then I would advertise on PPC or find a company that does pay per lead. And then I would advertise that I'm a cash offer buyer, knowing that 95% of those people that inquire are not going to be able to sell to me for cash, because obviously for cash, there's a certain margin. And then for the other 95%, it leads to an opportunity for me to list it. So what I'm telling a lot of people that I'm talking to is, guys, we got to stop thinking like real estate agents.
Yes.
We got to stop thinking like realtors. We got to think more like business people. We got to think more like flippers. We got to think more like wholesalers. Why is it that a majority of real estate agents don't own any real estate? Like, why? Like, how is that acceptable to us?
Yeah.
How is it acceptable to us that we will trade a $15,000 to $20,000 commission when there's $100,000 to be made on that property? Yep. And the reason is that we don't have access to the right information. So comment down below if you guys want us to do more videos on investing, and also like how to capitalize on some of these to start building your wealth via real estate investing. If you guys do, we're happy to do more of those as well too. So I think another question that people are going to have, Aaron, is, okay, like, let's say that I do this advertising and somebody offers me a home at 500,000. Like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
like,
and
how do
I think that, yeah. How do you do that? Well, I mean, you shared a pretty awesome example of that happened recently, where you went through the questions that you do. Like, did you have an idea at all of like realistically what you were thinking? And the individual just said 500. And you knew in your mind, because you do a lot of business, no matter where it is, a single family residential home in Oxnard, California, or Camarillo, if it's 500, that's a deal. So you were like, okay, cool. So I'd love to have the opportunity just to pop by, take a look. And what I'm going to do too is I'll bring with me, the appropriate documentation. So if it does make sense, I guess I'm wondering from your perspective, if I came over and after looking at it, I felt comfortable with that number and I made you an offer, would you be prepared to move forward? And she was like, yeah. You're like, yeah, okay. And then you went, brought the paperwork with you, sat down, and you're like, hey, this fits the criteria. I have the paperwork with me. I can go ahead and fill it out, and all I'll need is your signature. Does that sound good? And she was like, yeah, sounds great. And you move forward. Now, for you personally, because, you have the ability or the resources to do that, great. And for everybody listening, I want you to realize, if it's a good deal, money is never the problem. There's no shortage of money on planet Earth. It's just a shortage of good opportunities, right? So you could do hard money lending or various different things. The second option is you could have an investor that you work with. And, when I was on Pace Morby's podcast, Jamil was saying that he has a relationship actually with somebody that we know in his market where if she presents his cash offer and they take it, he gives her half of the assignment fee. Half. And sometimes that could be like 50 grand, depending on the deal, right? So there's various different options, but as agents, I would propose, with all the changes that are happening in the industry and these sharp elbowed kind of competitors pushing into our space, it is incumbent upon us to increase our skill sets, to add knowledge to what we're doing. So that way we can provide more than one option, which is just to list it at a fixed amount, even though all commissions are negotiable. I'm very clear on that. But to list it at a commissioned amount where it's like, hey, we have these options and choices, and whatever you decide is perfectly okay with me.
Yeah. And here's what I wanted to say. A lot of people imagine like, okay, so like, for example, the house that we bought for 500,000, there's hard money lenders that will finance 90% of the value of the property. And in some cases, even finance the repairs. So 90% of the value is actually $50,000, which is not a lot of money. So a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I don't have the 500,000 in cash. Do you have 50,000 in cash? Do you have a friend, a family member, somebody that you could partner up with that would have access to that $50,000 in cash that you can use as a down payment for the property? Now, the advantage that we have as real estate agents is that you actually know the marketplace really well and you know what values are. Another way that Aaron was talking about is that there's something called wholesaling. And if you guys are interested in learning about wholesaling, we can do a separate video on that. Or if you go to my personal channel, I've got videos on wholesaling as well too. Wholesaling is where you make the offer at 500,000. There is a clause in your contract saying that you reserve the right to assign this contract to somebody else for a fee. And then basically you have it tied up at 500,000. You work with another investor. You say, hey, look, you have the cash. I'll sell you this contract, or I'll flip this contract for 550,000. You make the $50,000 spread. They take over the contract. They close on it. You make $50,000 at closing. That's another way. Another way that we've done it is something called a double close. So you have the $500,000 deal tied up. You basically have another investor that's willing to buy it from you at 550,000. You get somebody to do what's called transactional funding for you. Somebody like Aaron, who's got 500,000. Aaron goes in there, puts in the 500,000 because you've already got the other buyer ready to go, locked in, no contingencies. That buyer, Aaron sends his money over. As soon as the buyer sends his money over, Aaron charges 1 point, 2 points, whatever he charges. You get to make the difference as well too. So there's so many different ways to skin this cat. It's just a matter of being open to the idea of actually making cash offers to people, knowing that there's multiple ways to monetize it once you make the cash offer, if it's a good enough opportunity. Now, if it's not a good enough opportunity, nobody's going to want to buy it from you. But if you really have a good enough opportunity, people want to buy it. Like for the $500,000 property that I bought, I just looked online, something on the same street that needs more work than us just sold at 625 as is. And it needs more work than what ours needed.
It's a no-brainer, man. So now tell me this, because I think one of the things that we do well is provide people with like tactical information. Yeah. Like specifically, not only kind of broad knowledge. Hey, this is an area where you can start to focus and learn some things, but also, hey, what do you say and how do you say it? Yeah. So let's say you're on calls with people and they're like, well, just like make me a cash offer. You know what I mean? Like they're not being responsive. How do you handle that?
Happy to make you a cash offer on the property. Can you tell me a little bit about the home? Meaning, like, is it upgraded? Is it remodeled? Is it in original condition? That'll get them talking. And that's what I want to do. I want to get them talking. Not only that, but the reality is that it's the same objection as, well, what do you think my home is worth over the phone?
It's the same thing. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's basically like, okay, what's the value of my home? What are you willing to offer? The only thing that's different is it's that they're telling you to make them a cash offer. So can you actually tell somebody what their home is worth without knowing the condition of the home? No, right? Yeah, like, no. Meaning in my market, there's homes that, like, I'll give you an example. The home that I bought at 500, fully renovated, it sells for 775. That's a $275,000 difference. So if you can't make a cash offer without knowing the condition, the next logical question is, can you tell me a little bit about the home? Can you tell me about the condition of the property? Does the property need any work? What's the condition of the roof? What's the condition of the plumbing? What's the condition of the kitchen? What's the condition of the flooring? What type of flooring do you have? What type of kitchen you have? Once you know that, you can ask them, be like, well, great. And just out of curiosity, like, assuming that somebody was willing to make you an offer as is, like, what would you pay or what would you sell the property for? And if they still say, well, I don't know, at that point, you have one of two ways you can take it. One way is you pull up some recent sales and you basically go, well, hey, just out of curiosity, there's a property on 123 Banana Street that needs work, and that property sold at 625. And just, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, just like see what happens. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And they're either going to say, well, that's actually higher than what I was thinking. Be like, okay, well, what were you thinking? Well, I was thinking X dollar amount. Or they're going to say, well, no, I was thinking like 700. Usually the people, and this is kind of something I've realized, the people that won't tell you what they want are the people that want top dollar, or they want a really high price for their property. Usually it's those people. The people that are open to selling for cash, they're very transparent. Like that lady, literally, I got off the phone with her. She's like, yeah, I want 500,000 cash. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. Simple, straightforward. And it's interesting because this is so good. I want everybody to really realize this is no different. Jose said something there, and I just want to like really clarify it and drive that point home. It's no different than when a seller asks you, what do you think my home is worth? Now, so when they ask you that, you could be like, well, you know, I appreciate you asking, and it's very difficult for me to give you a pinpoint to the penny, particularly because I haven't seen the property. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, is just ask you a couple quick questions, you know, with regards to its condition. So that way I can provide you with the most accurate information and be the best assistance to you. Will that be okay? And they're like, well, yeah. And then let's say they're being obstinate on the sales side. You're like, well, like you said, you have one or two options. And one of the options is like, well, you know, I'm here on one of these online sites that give estimates of value, and they have it at 725. Is that in alignment with what you were thinking? And then quiet. And they're like, oh no, that's way too low. Or, oh yeah, that's about what I was thinking. Right. So there's different ways to get the information. And what I want everybody to realize, and again, this is the blending of those two skill sets, is that on a retail sale, it's really not that different from this type of conversation where you can ask other questions to get to the information that you're after, right?
And then even what investors would do, and I haven't really done this, they have access to like PropStream or different websites that will tell them what the other cash sales in the area have sold for. And they'll, instead of saying like, okay, like we have this property on the MLS that sold for this, it's like, okay, well, look, I'm actually looking at another cash sale for another property, and that property sold at 230,000. What are your thoughts on that number? And I promise you, they're going to tell you what they think now. At that point, it's a way of uncovering it, basically.
It's like fleshing it out, right?
It's fleshing it out. And it'll tell you what direction to go in. It's almost like, even when they tell me like, well, what do you think my home is worth? My standard default well, I'm happy to share with you the value. A lot of the value of a home depends on the condition of the property, meaning the more remodeled the property is, the more it could sell for. The less remodeled, the less it could sell for. Do you mind me asking what the condition of the property is? Now, as they're telling me the condition, I'm looking up sales in the community. And then once they tell me the condition, I may say something like, well, I don't know if you know this, but there's a property on 123 Banana Street. Are you familiar with that property? Well, it's actually the same exact model as yours. Yours is 1,300 square feet. That one's 1,300 square feet. That one's 7,000 square foot lot. Yours is 7,000 square foot lot. That one looks like it sold at 700,000. What are your thoughts on that number? And then they're going to tell you, well, that's too low, or they're going to tell you that's too high. But at this point, you haven't told them what you think the home is worth. You just basically told them like, hey, there's this property that sold at this much. What are your thoughts on that? Or they might say like, well, if I can get that number, I would be ecstatic if I can get that number. But it's the same thing, like as to what do you think your home is? What would you make an offer? If they're being vague, you can go over a similar strategy where you throw out a number like, hey, Zillow says it's worth this. What are your thoughts on that number? And it's just a way of flushing out what they're really thinking. And then once you know what they're really thinking, you know what direction to go in. If it's retail, you take it in a retail direction. If it's cash, then you take it in the cash, like, hey, happy to make you an offer on the property.
Love it. And again, I want to stress to everybody, like, we have a choice to make as agents. You can either be a little birdie where the mama bird spits food into the baby bird's mouth. And this is what these platforms do. Yeah. Like, right? That's what they're doing. Because we don't want to be proactive and aggressive like ourselves. And we don't want to take on a little bit of risk, right? We don't want to spend any money. And that's one option. The second option is to use some of these third-party platforms to create your own cash offer program, which gets people to raise their hand. And what it makes me think about, Jose, like in I think it was 2021, we did a lot of business with Homelight, and we became their elite agent, whatever that means. And we did about $200,000 in commissions in 1 year just from that platform. And then increasingly, as time progressed, they started to treat me like an employee. They wanted
and increasing
to be on
the
calls.
fees.
Oh yeah, increasing the fees, but also, and like they wanted me to be on calls with their like lead manager all the time. And then it was like, hey, you're not selling our ancillary services. How come you're not doing lending? And how come you're not doing this? And how come you're not doing that? And it was just fascinating to me. You have a middle manager who sold real estate at one time and wasn't good at it, following up with me, who's $1 million a year GCI producer, about how to do my job. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's not worth it to me anymore. Right. And what this is this is a solution to that. So for these agents that are watching and listening, guys, you guys have an inventory issue? Okay, well, what we do doesn't change. How we do it and how much of it we do changes. So it makes sense to have a niche that you can go after, right? Death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities. Mine's probate. Jose does divorces and probates, right? We did a video on that. Go watch it. The second is having a cash offer program. We buy homes cash, get people to raise their hand, and then utilize this pre-qualification approach that we're describing, where we know statistically 5% of them will accept an offer that's cash. And if so, you buy it, or you have an investor that buys it and you work out a deal with them. The second option is you can list at retail, and that'll happen 95% of the time, right? And another thing I think people should be doing is making very bold, aggressive, like offers. Like, hey, we'll sell your home within the listing agreement, and if we don't, we'll give you $3,000 for the inconvenience. Because we forget that we get to decide the terms and conditions. Like, I could say the listing agreement has to be for a year. I could say you have to use a lockbox. You have to do all this stuff, right? And then the last one is like just numbers. Having telemarketers like blow through numbers, because it makes logical sense. If there's less opportunities, I'm going to have to talk to more people. And a lot of people take that upon themselves. Like, okay, Jose needs to sit in a room and make 100 contacts a day, versus how can I have other people help me do that? But this is an intricate piece to the formula of how to deal with a lack of inventory. Now, I guess I'm wondering, are there any other objections that you hear regularly, or any kind of things that might trip people up when they're having conversations with these leads?
So I think it's just the intro. Like, let's say I receive a lead from Need to Sarah House Fast. I'm going to start it off with, hey, I'm looking for Aaron Jose Morales here. Received the message that you were interested in receiving a cash offer for your property. Just wanted to reach out, introduce myself. Are you in fact considering a cash offer for your home? And they're either going to say yes, no, or maybe. If they say yes, I'm like, great. What's a good day for me to come by and take a look at the property? That way I can make a cash offer for your home. Now, I think a lot of people in some cases want to make the cash offer over the phone. I like making the cash offers in person, because it also opens up the possibility of potentially listing the property if it doesn't work out from a cash offer perspective. And the reality is that if the offer's too low over the phone, then it kind of shuts me out from potentially listing the property for them. So I'm like, great. What it's also going to do when I ask them for that question, it's also going to tell me what occupancy as well too. So if basically I ask them that question, they might be like, well, you know what? It's actually not possible to view the home because it's tenant occupied. So now I know that it's a non-owner occupied property and that they don't want us to see the home. The other thing that it does is most people don't want to have a bunch of people walking through their home. So if I can get through inside their home, I've already gotten one step further in the sales process as well too. Or if I can get into a tenant occupied property, I'm one step further in the sale process, which increases the chances of me being able to do business with them. It's almost like when they hand me the keys. When they hand me the keys, I'm done. One step further along in the sales process, which is what I've done. Now, if they say, yes, it's possible, great. I'll see you today at 5, and then I'll start to qualify them. I'll start to say, great, just out of curiosity, like, what's the condition of the home? Same things that I would ask for a listing appointment. What's the condition of the home? Is it remodeled? I'll ask questions like, why sell to a cash investor versus go the traditional route? I'll ask questions like, why sell? If it's a good enough price, I'll say, okay, I'll ask like, okay, realistically, like how much do you want for the property? And then I'll ask, if it's a good price, I'll say, if you can get that price today, would there be any reason why we couldn't move forward? Like when I see it, like, are you prepared to move forward on a cash offer that day? No, there wouldn't be any reason. Boom. Now, if they don't give me access to the property and they say something like the property's tenant occupied, or they're like, hey, look, I just want a cash offer over the phone, I'll ask questions about the condition of the property. I'll say, great, can you tell me about the condition of the home? Like, is it remodeled? Is it original? I'll just begin, instead of setting the appointment, I'll begin to qualify the lead. I'll ask them the same question, like, why sell it to a cash offer versus the traditional route? I'll ask the question about the price. I'll basically skip the appointment and jump right into qualifying the lead to see what am I actually dealing with and why is it that they want to sell it to a cash offer. And in that case, I may even throw out a number. Like if it's tenant occupied and I won't be able to see the property, then that conversation goes a little bit different. What I would be doing is I would be telling them, look, I ran some numbers. It looks like the value of the home is in the 750 range. Now, just to be fully transparent, the way that cash investors work is they typically offer a percentage of whatever the home is worth. In most cases, most cash investors will offer somewhere around 65 or 70% of whatever the value is. I'm actually one of the investors that pays a little bit more. I'll actually offer 75%. But let's say that the value of the home is worth $750,000. I will offer you $562,000. What are your thoughts on that number? That's too low. We're thinking somewhere closer to the X number. Well, just so you know, I believe that you can get that $750,000 number. There's no doubt in my mind. But in order for you to do that, you're probably going to be better off putting it on the market with a real estate agent. Now, that doesn't have to be me. It could be anybody of your choice. But just so you know, aside from being an investor, I also hold a California real estate license. And that is something that I can help you with. And I'm pretty confident that I can help you get that number. Is that something that you would be open to in potentially working together from that perspective? And they're either going to say yes or no, we're not open to it. And if they say yes, I'll be like, great. Well, what's a good day for us to get together? That way we can go over the home selling process and what we can do to help you get top dollar for the property. So I've now transitioned it into a listing appointment versus a cash offer route. Now, in some cases, I may not share the formula with them. So in some cases, I may just tell them like, look, like, just so you know, the most we can offer for the property might be like around $550,000. And just to kind of hear what their thoughts are on that number. If their thoughts are like, no, that's way too low, I may say something along the lines, well, what were you thinking? Well, I was thinking like 750. Well, just so you know, I kind of did some research. I'm pretty confident you can get that 750 on the open market for it, but it would require that you put it on the open market. My advice to you is go find a real estate agent that will list the property for you. Now, if you don't have somebody, I'm actually a California real estate licensee as well too, and I could actually help you with that. But me telling them like, go find a real estate agent, it almost takes the pressure. Like, I'm not trying to sell you on using me. It's almost like a little bit of a takeaway, almost like, hey, look, go find somebody, or if you already have somebody, you're welcome to use them. But if you didn't have somebody, I actually offer those services.
Yeah, it's a pro tip. It is a takeaway close because we pursue that which retreats. And what I'm aware of is I could hear or kind of feel all of the agents watching this when you said, yeah, just like go find a real estate agent. All of them internally were like, oh my God, what are you doing? Right. But it actually works it actually works to your favor if you say that. Yeah. 100%. Because it lets them know that, like, look, the main purpose of my call was to see if I can make a cash offer. Yeah. And I'm not attached to the outcome. Like, whatever you decide is fine. And I think that's really awesome. And then I took a couple notes here in terms of like pro tips that you shared. One is to, well, I wanted to clarify with you, like, let's say you go on the appointment and kind of both are open. Yeah. I'm imagining that you will bring both the listing paperwork and a contract with you. If you're unclear.
Both a cash offer. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to make either one.
Either one. And you're fine with either one. That's right.
Yeah.
And then
the cash offer, one sec. The cash offer paperwork is a little bit different than your standard listing agreement paperwork. Just so you know, we have a very simple 2-page contract. If you Google like how to make a cash offer online, you can find a very simple 2-page contract. If you want to reach out to us, I'll send Aaron our 2-page contract that we use. But the problem was that whenever I would use a California standard residential purchase agreement, like a 10-page document, and I was competing against other investors, they would get so confused and they would think that you're trying to take advantage of them. The reality is that you're not. So I simplified it to a 2-page contract, which just basically says, as is, X amount of contingencies, who escrow is, and what we're offering you for the property. Very simple. As soon as I started doing that, I started winning some of these negotiations.
Well, and I love that because that's such a pro tip that can save people so much time. And the way you learned it is by iterating. So you did it and you kept losing out and you were like, shit, like what's going on? And then you realize like, oh, they actually think in their mind because the paperwork is 10 pages long, like it's complicated and it must be convoluted and must be trying to take advantage of them.
And I have some funny clauses in there.
Yeah. And when you shrink the paperwork down to 2 pages where it's simple and clean, it's much easier for them to make a decision.
100% on that.
That's dope. And then the other pro tip that I heard from you is in person. You know, I've watched a lot of like, you know, you see these TikTok videos or YouTube where they're trying to like do it over the phone. And yeah, I'll send you a contract via DocuSign, which is like, you know, okay, maybe. And I imagine that you could get that to work sometimes. At the same time, I am in agreement with you, you know, that particularly for something like this, like if you can get in front of them and you show up, you know, with your cheeks and everything, they want to pinch you and you're in a suit and stuff, and you smile and shit. Exactly, bro. Like they're going to get to know you and it, you know, there is a relational component to this. Like they want to feel good about what they're doing. Obviously you're giving them an offer that's acceptable, but your physical presence causes them to feel comfortable.
I agree with that. And even for listing appointments, like we do Zoom listing appointments as well too, but our preference is to get in front of them for a listing appointment. And the reason is that I have the contract in front of me and I can just get it signed right there on the spot if everything makes sense, which is the same thing for a cash offer that I don't have to wait for a DocuSign or a digital signature and them waiting a day or two to sign it. I could literally just get it signed right there on the spot, which means we can move on and open up escrow and everything like that.
Yeah. And I think particularly in this type of offer, like the stakes are a little higher, right? Because the spreads are a lot higher. So having to wait, you know, to get a DocuSign. Because, you know, for me, 30% of all the homes I would list and sell each year, I would never meet the owner. I'd physically never see the property. So it was all done via Zoom and DocuSign stuff. At the same time, in this particular kind of segment, in this like niche of business, if we're making offers, you know, second place is like, doesn't matter. And
it doesn't matter.
As time elongates, they'll talk to other investors and and they'll tell them, you know, this or that. So being able to be prepared and get it inked right away is solid.
Yeah, I agree. And then even in some cases, like I had one recently where the cash offer that I made her was too low and she wanted a certain number. And I just started throwing out all the services that we offer traditionally. Like, hey, look, if you need help getting all this stuff out, I'll get all the stuff out for you. Hey, we have a moving truck. We have a dump truck. Hey, if you wanted to fix up some items, I will upfront the money for you. I will pay for the money and I'll get reimbursed at the close of escrow. So it's like I give them all these options because no matter which option they pick, every single one of them includes me.
That's right. Well,
meaning I benefit in any of the options that they pick.
That's right. And what I think is fantastic about that is that it's the blend of those two worlds. So like it's how I kind of began this conversation. I mentioned it earlier where as an agent who sells real estate in high volume and who has all of these ancillary services that you can provide for retail clients, you can then begin to provide those options to, let's say, a cash offer client. And because you are able to add those services like, hey, let's say they need to get it cleared out. Yep. I own a dump truck and we can have them come over at no charge. Or, yeah, I got contents I need to, you know, ship over here. Okay, we can take care of that for you. Or whatever the case may be with your ancillary services that you provide. It allows you to win business in both realms. Yeah. In both areas. But like Jose mentioned, in any scenario, he's involved in the process.
Yeah, not only that, but when you start marketing to these people for cash offers, like we have one where I made a cash offer at 800,000 and originally she was considering it, but then she goes, I want 850. And at 850, the numbers were too tight for me. And then her friend that was a real estate agent was like, well, I'll list it at 900 and I'll charge you a standard commission. What we did is we because we carry a lot of listings, We have a lot of buyers that reach out to us. We had an off-market buyer that was looking for something similar in Camarillo. We brought it to the seller and put as is. The buyer's, it needs a little bit of work. The buyer was willing to buy it at 900,000 and we get paid a commission. So we were still able to capitalize. But the reality is that that lead was generated because that owner wanted a cash offer. Had that owner not wanted the cash offer, we would have never been able to bring her the buyer. So it's almost like a lead generation mechanism. And here's my encouragement to agents. If you're going to market, don't market to buyers. Market to sellers, because if you control the inventory, all of the buyers in the marketplace will be reaching out because you control all the listings and all the good deals in the marketplace. So if you're going to do any sort of marketing, market to sellers, and that will allow you to control the inventory. And then buyers are always going to call on your listings, which means there's no sense of marketing to the buyers because the buyers come as a direct result of having listings. The listings is the goose that keeps producing the golden egg.
100% agreement with that. And it's pretty wild. Like the model has been for the last decade, because most agents are buyer heavy. Most brokerages, most teams are buyer heavy, like 70-80% of their deals come from the buy side. And with this, commission lawsuit, like who knows what will happen, and there'll be appeals and stuff. But with a high degree of probability, buyers, agents are going to have to negotiate a portion, if not all their fee in the future at some point, right? I'd say it's probably 70% chance that happens. Well, that model of buying leads and paying big referral fees doesn't work anymore when that happens. So like what I'm aware of is if you think about this logically, what you're doing is you're buying leads, paying massive referral fees for buy-side transactions. And if you're not doing them and you have somebody on your team, you're basically making like very little money, like 20%, sometimes less. Whereas if you're focused on the listing side, what all of these platforms need, like oxygen to breathe, is inventory. Listings. I mean, it needs data, it needs listings. So by spending the same spend on seller leads and acquiring the specialized knowledge, which me and Jose are sharing with you now on how to say it and what to say and how to structure it and the process and everything, long term, like if you can elongate time horizons, you can make better decisions because judgment is about what's best in the long term. So ask yourself a question. Long term, buying leads to work with buyers, like where does that lead? And long term, like let's say spending some money on seller leads that are raising their hand and saying they want a cash offer, and you acquiring the specialized knowledge where you can not only list them, but perhaps buy some, where does that lead? Yeah. And it's pretty clear. But it's just the barrier is like learning what to say and how to say it. But, it's a skill that anybody can acquire. A skill implies practice, right? So Jose, I promise you, he didn't come out of his womb talking like this. I knew him when he was doing 20 deals a year. He didn't talk like this. So, he's acquired it over an extended period of time and through iteration. So meaning he's willing to do things, screw it up and figure it out. I mean, he just shared here. On the retail side, how many listing appointments did you go on and how many did you take? That it was like something silly.
It was like 105. Like it was like I went on 100 and only took 5 at the very beginning. So I messed it up. If there's somebody messing it up, it was me. But then the key was I kept making adjustments. Every time I would ask him like, hey, why is it that you chose somebody else? I just looking to improve my business. And they would give me feedback and I kept hearing the same thing. And I just made adjustments to be like, okay, this is why I'm losing. I'm going to work on those things to the point where I worked on all those things. Now I win a majority of them, like a majority of them I win. Here's the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about. So, and I think that this would be helpful. Like, so let's say that somebody says, yeah, I want a cash offer. They tell me that the price that they want and the price that they want is retail. And I'm still going to go on the appointment because I'm not going to tell them, hey, look, you want retail over the phone. I'm going to tell them like, look, I'm going to come by. I'm going to basically make you a cash offer on the property. And then I come by, I do the walkthrough like I normally would. I sit down at the kitchen table. I'm like, look, as I mentioned to you, I'm prepared to make you a cash offer today. Now, the only thing I want to let you know, because I already know that it's retail, based on the number that they told me, I'm going to be like, for most people, the cash offer route does not make sense. For 99% of the people, the cash offer route is not going to make sense, meaning that because it is cash, that number comes in significantly different than whatever a retail offer comes in at. But I'm going to be fully transparent with you, and I'm actually going to show you how the formula works. And the reason I want to show you how the formula works is you may say, well, Jose made me a lowball cash offer. And you may say, well, I want to call another cash investor to see if they'll make me a better offer. Or I may want to call 2 more people to see if they'll make me a better offer. I want you to understand the formula because all investors have the same exact formula. Some of them may not be willing and open to share it with you, but I'm going to share it with you. That way you know how it works. So this is the formula. The formula is if the home is worth, which they already told me what they want, if the home is worth $500,000, investors will pay 65% of the value. I pay 75% of the value. That comes out to, let's say, $350,000. That's what a cash offer would be. Now, because they already told me a number what they're looking for, I'm going to discourage them from that number. I'm going to be like, well, look, for most people and even for yourself, I don't think you should sell for 350. I think you should go for the full 500,000. Now, I strongly believe that you can get that $500,000 cash offer. The only thing that in order to get that $500,000 offer, you would need to get it on the open market. Now, I'm aware that almost everybody knows a real estate agent. So if you have somebody already that you trust or you know somebody that's a real estate agent, I'd recommend that you reach out to them and you tell them that you want to list the property for $500,000. Now, if you were ever open to it, I do want to be full disclosure. I do have a California real estate license. We do sell about $80 million worth of real estate. I could actually help you get that $500,000 for the property. Is that something that you would ever be open to?
This is money in the bank. Okay. And I think the important thing is too, for everybody that's listening, guys, most people teach mindset because they can't teach tactics. I'm going to say that again, not because you didn't hear me, but because it's very important. Most people teach mindset and motivation because they can't teach tactics. What me and Jose are giving you is tactics. We want you to be actually armed and know exactly what to say and how to say it so you can convert. And if you like this video, be sure to watch the next one. But Jose, attorneys don't want to speak to me. Their assistants rush me off the phone. How is it possible that you can work with attorneys and actually grow a probate business?